there, my name is Ellen Holloway. I host a podcast called Charting Toward Intimacy, which aims to expand the natural family planning conversation from a Catholic perspective. I'm also an instructor in the SymptoPro, 𝗬𝗲𝗴𝗏𝗲 method of natural family planning, and I do courses and coaching to help women live with NFP and what it takes to really embrace the lifestyle that NFP is and work through the challenges that come across when you're using NFP in your marriage. I'm here to tell you a little bit about my story with natural family planning. So when my husband and I were engaged, we went to our marriage preparation weekend, and we had what I would consider one of the worst types of introductions to natural family planning. And that introduction consisted of a very short talk done by a priest, not the presenting couples that were presenting all of the other sessions that weekend. It was done by a priest who clearly didn't care that much about the teaching of natural family planning and fertility awareness. And the two presenting couples were off to the side, kind of looking at the floor, not paying attention. And the priest basically got up and said, "Hey, NFP is this thing. You can use it. It's healthy, I think, and there's some links that you can look at in your packet. Do that on your own time. That's natural family planning." And from that introduction, it was very clear to my husband and I that both of the presenting couples didn't use natural family planning. And it's even clearer to me now that neither of them used natural family planning, because if they had, they would have gotten up there and talked about it, because there is a lot to using natural family planning in your marriage. What it also told us is because that priest didn't really care about the teaching of natural family planning, we assumed that it wasn't really something that was that important. So because of that, we didn't really do any work, and we didn't really research it at all. We didn't do our own homework. A couple of months before we got married, I got on the birth control pill. This was an awful experience for me. I quickly gained weight, which was very frustrating because I was trying to look nice on my wedding day and fit into the wedding dress that I had purchased a year prior. And my libido went completely to zero. I had absolutely no interest. On top of that, once we got married, I actually had vaginismus. This was not something that I discovered until quite a few months later, but it was actually impossible for about 6 months for my husband and I to have intercourse. Vaginismus is a tightening of the pelvic floor, which in its greatest stages and its highest stages, it actually makes penetration impossible. But vaginismus can be as slight as painful intercourse. So it kind of has this wide range. But it was actually almost impossible for us to achieve penetration without serious pain. And we technically did not consummate our marriage until about 6 months after we got married. I had a history of some issues with sexuality and sexual play, and that right alongside of using the pill, which I knew to be wrong, but thought that maybe there wasn't any other option because I wasn't really introduced to the true teaching and what natural family planning was. So because I thought there wasn't another option, I got on the pill, but I knew that that was against Catholic Church teaching, and so I had a lot of shame in regards to taking the pill every morning. I had a lot of shame when it came to sex. I had a lot of suppression and purity culture influence when it came to sex. And so all of these things kind of led to this vaginismus diagnosis. So on top of all of that, about a month into being married, I was on the pill. We still had not been able to actually achieve penetrative sex. Our marriage was failing fast. We did not have a honeymoon phase like a lot of couples talk about. I actually have no idea what that means. We were at each other's necks immediately, and we were really struggling in our marriage. And by the grace of God, we were able to pinpoint it to the fact that I was feeling a lot of shame by bringing the sin of contraception into our marriage. And we could also just pinpoint it to that, that effect of contraception on our marriage. I got off of the pill and started doing some personal research on natural family planning. And I found, wait for it, a PDF online. Yes, I learned the SymptoThermal method from an online PDF. I would not suggest this method in any form. I had almost zero confidence in the method. My husband had probably less confidence than myself because we didn't have an instructor to ask questions to. The PDF was not detailed enough about the true science of fertility and fertility awareness, and so we didn't understand exactly how this worked. What that led to, with me not having very much confidence, was that we abstained far more than we needed to in order to avoid pregnancy. However, because avoiding pregnancy was a very high priority, we did in fact avoid pregnancy for a significant period of time using that method, but we were abstaining far more than we needed to. Even though I had almost no confidence in the method, and same with my husband, we did start seeing the fruits of working with the natural design of our body almost immediately. Things really cleared up in our marriage. We began to really discuss the difficult topics like sex, sexual intimacy, pleasure, foreplay, contraception, fertility awareness, libido, things like that. We actually began to discuss them because tracking your biomarkers and learning about your fertile and infertile window periods really leads to that conversation pretty easily. Now, I'm not saying these conversations were easy, and I'm not saying that this period of time was easy. In fact, this was the darkest period of my marriage, but it led to some of the greatest light. I remember one night sitting in bed after being so frustrated trying to find information about natural family planning and trying to understand what the church taught and how this works, and frustrated with the background of sexual history that I had and the disdain, honestly, that I had for intercourse. And I sat there lying in bed staring at the ceiling, and I told God, okay, you tell me when, and I will do whatever you want to make sure that no one else feels this way again. And what that led to is I said yes to being on a natural family planning board at my parish and my diocese. What that further led to was becoming an instructor in natural family planning. And then that led even further to hosting the podcast that I do on natural family planning and doing the coaching and NFP advocacy and speaking that I do. So when we decided to become instructors, we chose the SymptoPro method. And so we actually learned for the first time a true method from an instructor, and our eyes were opened to the incredible efficacy and the science behind fertility awareness and natural family planning. And we were just on board immediately. My husband and I became instructors together. We are individual instructors, but we also sometimes teach together. And we just absolutely fell in love. I love the SymptoThermal method. I think that can work well for a lot of women if you have a good instructor and you understand the method. It's not a perfect method. No methods are perfect, and it's not going to be for every woman. But it can be a really good place to start to get a feel for what kinds of data you like to track, and what is most comfortable for you. If you like relying on technology, if you like relying on observing your personal signs, a symptothermal method can kind of give you a really good idea of both of those ends of the spectrum. I have also used the Marquette method during the postpartum time. During my second postpartum experience, I had continuous mucus, and it was just too overwhelming and stressful for me to try to chart accurately enough with the cervical mucus in that period of time, because it requires very accurate charting. And so we did learn the Marquette method with its postpartum protocol, and I did find that method incredibly helpful for that period of time. However, I did not enjoy peeing in a cup every morning. I hated that. I really didn't like just like having to remember to not go to the bathroom when I wake up at 2 in the morning and try to hold that pee, try to have like a good couple of hours of concentrated urine before peeing in the cup, and then having to have this testing window and testing it, and then having to wait for the fertility monitor to read the test stick. I really honestly realized that I personally don't like relying on technology quite that much, and I just thought it was frustrating to have to pee in a cup. So as soon as I started cycling, I went right back to the symptothermal method because I find it very comfortable. I know it very well, especially being an instructor. I do know it very well. And I feel that it works extremely well for my body and my cycles. And I can have a lot of confidence in when the fertile window closes, and as soon as it closes, with the cross check of basal body temperature and cervical mucus. So that is the short version of my story with natural family planning. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and definitely check out my podcast for more stories of people and their NFP journeys.